Hi, and welcome back to the Bold and Blissful Women Summit, where we teach you and help you how to connect with your feminine essence to create the extraordinary life and love you desire. Today, we have a very special guest. Her name is LiYana Silver. She's an author, speaker, and she helps women truly connect with their own feminine genius. Welcome, LiYana. It's a pleasure to have you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So I would like for us to start, if you could share, with the women that are viewing this interview, a little bit about what you do, what is it that you're currently doing, what's your message all about?
Sure. Well, I say it two ways. Help unlock your feminine genius and help bring your feminine genius to life. And feminine genius to me is the intuitive brilliance or the innate brilliance that's available to any woman when she's turned on or connected to her feminine essence, as you've been speaking. It's remarkable. Feminine genius is remarkable.
Thank you for that. I truly agree. So I wanted to ask you, I know that today's topic is all about allowing ourselves to feel everything, especially if we are going through a breakdown, a meltdown, everything. So I would like for you to start explaining, why is it vital for a woman to allow herself to experience and feel, a breakdown? Why is it vital for us?
It's a great question. Well, first of all, it's good to notice that it's not optional. It's designed that way. We have a misconception that a breakdown or a failure, if you want to call it that, or a downtime is a marker of something wrong, either with us as a human being or person or aspiring businesswoman, whatever. But we don't really understand that it's actually designed that way. We are designed to go up and down. We're designed to go through the life and death, or the death and rebirth cycle. So first of all, we have to really realize that as women, we are designed to be cyclical. We are designed, our rhythms, our focus, our productivity, our emotions, our energy is designed to fluctuate. And actually for men in the male body and often in the male brain, it's designed to regulate. So we live in a culture and in a world that rewards you being regular. Like you always are bringing your A game. And that taxes and compromises a woman's system, physically, spiritually, emotionally, in ways that we all feel and see around us. And so partly what we're doing in this conversation you're creating is, what in the world does it take for women to be connected to their power, a sustainable way of being, so that their feminine essence can lead the way. And we're in a world that doesn't really reward that. It's not really built for it. And so this is we want to set the stage with that. So first of all, it's vital for us to be connected to our down times, partly because they are. Let me answer it in two different ways, which is, first of all, depending on where you live, everywhere in the world, there's always seasons. Mm-hmm. There's always a season of rest, or of the darker season, the wetter season. You could be living really close to the equator in a really tropical country, and you wouldn't notice a whole lot. It'd be like 80 versus 88 or something degrees. Whereas if you're somewhere else, there's four obvious seasons. Yet there's still the wet season and the dry season, or the humid season and the dry season, right? We do go in these periods where there is up and outward energy and there is drawing in energy. And so is it within every human being, and specifically within the body of a woman. Now, there's also two things available when you can really be with your own dark night of the soul. And the first is that you won't find this during it, usually. You find it after. This is an after the fact kind of thing. But you'll always be able to look back and see what gem of truth, of your strength, of your authority, or your ownership of something was only available because you went through Hades for the longest period that you did. Certain aspects of yourself and your journey are not available except for those trial by darkness times. You'll always be able to look back and always be able to pinpoint like an aspect of your strength or your knowing or your wisdom that you always got if you're going through the eye of the needle of those dark times.
Right.
So actually I said 2, but that's the main one.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit about what happens when you resist going there or when you resist acknowledging what's going on?
Suffering, pain, the beautiful heartbreaking phrase that says suffering is optional, pain is mandatory, suffering is optional, and suffering is the pushing away, the hardening to, or the numbing out to what is. And when we can, this is I'm not saying this is easy. This is a practice, and this is really takes some fortitude. But when we can be with, open into, or soften and receive exactly what we are experiencing, then we can actually experience the wisdom of it. We can experience being able to feel the full range of who we are and not die from it. What was your question? I went off topic a little bit.
What happens when you resist acknowledging what's going on?
So I want to say this, and I wanted to make sure we don't talk. We don't want to reduce this conversation to if you're feeling bad, you've done something wrong. Mm-hmm. It's not that simple. But what happens when we don't feel what is there, or we don't understand the messages of our emotions, or we don't understand the true wisdom that's trying to come through a dark time, then it kind of goes underground, and it can make you sick. You can get a cold, you can get pneumonia, you can get depressed, you can become chronically anxious, you can become really numbed out, you can become really unable to have satisfying connections with other people, or your sex life isn't the same. That, there's no way for this, it has to go somewhere, and so it'll go underground or it'll go inside and become either kind of dead weight, or it'll erupt in really inopportune times. So it is there. We have to find a way to really flow with it and dance with it and move it, or else it kind of it really has a message for us. And if we don't listen, it's like takes your head and shoves it down into the concrete floor, and it's like, "Are you going to listen to me now?" So it's just going to come sometime.
I think it's important to mention that it's happening for you, right?
Yeah, I think that what happens, either you decided to step on the path of your soul's journey as a woman, or it just decided for you. But what happens is you have there is something that wants to come through you. There's something that wants to learn here. There's something that there's an aspect of you that sees there's something missing in the world, and it needs to come through you. And that's your soul, right? That's your purpose, we could call it. And it does not pick the direct route. It picks the scenic route. It picks the route with a lot of learning and challenges, because your soul came to learn stuff and contribute stuff, and it's not necessarily to look really pretty while you do it.
I just want to comment on what you just said about numbing it out or trying not to pay attention to it. I was very surprised when you mentioned pneumonia, right? I can attest to this because my dad passed away like 5 years ago, and on the outside, it seemed like I had everything together, but I was numbing everything out until I never got this. Like 6 months after, out of nowhere, I got pneumonia, and I was just like flat on my bed for like 2 weeks straight. So I've seen it happen, in other shapes and forms in my life as well. So, there was a message that I wasn't allowing myself to feel, the loss of my life. So yes, I think it's very important for us to know that there are consequences to our health, and that we should, we can avoid them. I think that it's also important to talk about, we all try to avoid or numb pain in any shape or form. Can you talk a little bit about that, the ways that we currently do it, and why should we stop, or what can we do to shift that?
So it's a perfectly human response to move away from pain. So I feel that if we can try this as a practice and get better and better at it, but not have a standard where you're imagining that your life is pain-free, or that if you're experiencing pain or you're not completely opening to pain, that something's wrong. That there's a lot. I wanted this to be a subtle quest here.
Yes.
Yeah. Say it again. Say your question again. I get so excited. I want to come back to your question.
Perfect. What are the ways that we currently numb ourselves out, and what should we do?
Great question. So it can look like getting busy, working. I don't have time to feel the grief of my dad's death, my dog's death. So I can overwork.
Mm-hmm.
Shopping, obvious ones like drinking or drugging or smoking. There's no quicker way to change your state than a lot of these things. I would say those are the main ones. I suppose sometimes you could do a sort of a demonstrative over expressing of emotions, but usually it's a stuffing in and it's a quieting down, a way where I don't want to feel this, rather than feeling it a lot. I would say there's just a few things to counteract this, which is every once in a while it's okay to use things that have side effects to change your state, but mostly there's two main things to know. The first is you're not feeling something because you're wrong. You're feeling something because there's wisdom in feelings. There is a core message, there is a core wisdom in every single emotion that you feel. And you can, so partly why the reason we numb to it is we think it will be too much and I will die from it. This will be too intense or too much for me to bear. Or we think that it's an indication that something's really bad and wrong. Why would I want to walk through that door? So I think the first thing is to know this is supposed to be here, and it's really for me, and it's really wise. So then what we can do is the first thing, it's one of my I have 7 practices I think that are really just excellent for women to be women and women to connect to our feminine genius in this challenging world. And this one I call Feel It, All of It. And this really is a sense that there's nothing that you could feel that is wrong. Every emotion is wise.
Yes.
Everyone. And so the practice of being able to feel it is pretty simple. I'll just share it a little bit like on the body level, the somatic level, a little bit on the intellectual level. I'll quote Pema Chodron in a book that I just read of her. She's a really cool Buddhist nun, very wise. And she said, with emotions, can you let them pierce you to the heart? And I think so often we pull back or we pull away so as to not feel the intensity. But there's a liberation that comes in. Actually, what happens if you softened, or you relaxed, or you opened into, or you said, okay, come in, and let it pierce you to your heart, undefended. And the willingness to say, okay, emotion, you're welcome. Okay, I'm going to feel you, is the first step. Now, it can be really helpful in there to use your mind to help you feel it. Meaning, okay, what am I feeling? What are the sensations that I'm feeling? What are the emotions? Let's name them. I'm feeling grief. I'm feeling sensations of heaviness, of lightness, of warmth, of coolness, of effervescence, of leadenness. Where am I feeling it in my body? I'm feeling it behind my eyeballs. I'm feeling it right in my throat. I'm feeling it in my calves. I'm feeling it in my lower back. To lean into what you're feeling. And that it's good to know that emotions do not last forever. They feel like they do. Dark nights of the soul, any time that is a dip into the death part of the death and rebirth cycle, the marker, you know how you know you're in there, is because it lasts longer than you think it should be lasting. But emotions, I've heard it said that emotion, like actually the physiological experience of an emotion lasts between 90 seconds and 3 minutes. If we fully are there with it. If we fix it or fade it or run from it, it just repeats. It just, kind of goes on repeat. But it's good to know, okay, I can feel this for 3 minutes. I can do that. And then the second step is to really understand what is the wisdom. What's the wisdom in each of the emotion? And you can just ask the question, okay, emotion, I know you're wise. What's your message for me? What do you want me to know? And you'll get some really powerful and wonderful answers back. If we have if we have time, I can talk about some of the core messages of different emotions as I've seen them, because there are some somewhat universal ones. You'd still want to ask and get the nuanced personal ones for yourself, but we can go there as well.
Yeah, I would love that.
Should I go for it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So here's the biggies. This is the first one that I ever learned. So the core message of, we'll do the kind of the hard and heavy ones first. The core message of anger is something that I value or something that is precious to me. It feels threatened. Something that I value feels threatened, or something that is precious to me feels threatened. Now, this is rather than I'm bad and wrong for being angry. This lets you know so much about what you value, or so much about ways that it feels threatened, right? This gives you tremendous information of what you want to express, or what you want to do in the situation. Shame. These are subjective. I made them up, right? I made them up. I interviewed my mentor on this. So you take them with a grain of salt and pass them through your own system. But shame, the core message of shame is something is misaligned or inauthentic. And I'm going to use the smoke signal of turning it into myself. Shame is a recognition there's something unaligned, but I don't want to face it, so I'm going to blame myself. It's blame turned inward.
I love that. I can resonate with that.
Yeah, right? And that just that loosens the whole thing up and gives us a way to move a bit with it. What else? Blame, I think, is interesting. I think of blame as anger's sidekick, and it kind of does this job of get the energy out toward that bad person or that bad situation, so I can figure out, what of the anger that I'm feeling is about the outside situation, and what of it is about myself. It's sort of a deflector. But blame is simply there's something. I think there's something. It's the way I need help. Is often what I think the core message of blame is. That if it's someone else's problem, it's not mine, then maybe someone will come to help. So I think the core message is like, I need help. What else you got? Do you want me to go through any others?
Let me think of someone. You mentioned blame, you mentioned anger, you mentioned, what about sadness?
Sadness is great. Sadness is super good. Sadness is something that sadness and grief are really similar. Something that I love is lost. Or something I value or something precious is lost.
That's beautiful. I wanted to ask you, how can we detect or gather or unearth, the meaning behind an emotion? I know that you mentioned a way. Are there any other ways that we can actually start to connect or dig deep? Because what if the answer doesn't come up front immediately?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel that personally, my intuition is on a very slow speed. This is not the case for a lot of my friends or a lot of my colleagues, or it's different for everyone. But really, I know a lot of friends and people who ask for something and it comes right away and it's technicolor and clear and comes with the 5-point action plan. And it's not necessarily like that for me. So I kind of like to, I've never articulated this before. I really appreciate the question. I kind of ask the question, I ask it of myself, of my emotions, and then I say, I'll wait for the answer. I'm not expecting an immediate answer. I'm putting it out there. I do expect an answer, so I have the gentle expectation, not demanding expectation. I'm sure that an answer will come, and I respect the timing it's going to come. And so I don't know, that might be, I'm not a particular codified religious person, so when I use the word prayer, that's how I kind of mean it, of like, thanks or help, and when you can get back to me, that would be really appreciated.
Have you noticed any patterns, like with the clients that you work with, like in your own life, of how that answer normally comes up, like any common patterns?
Yes. So it depends on the person, but usually I'm working with women to help them connect with their feminine genius, which is it is not of the mind. And it is particularly of the body, of the soma, of your intuition, of your sensations, of your emotions. Your mind is part of it. Your feelings are part of it, but it's very much about your entire body. Mm-hmm. And so certainly a lot of people get guidance through pure thought, but most often your intuition is a mix of body sensations and emotions. And then you sort of tuning your inner ear to start to feel those and then decode them for yourself.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you were going to say something?
Well, I think a nice analogy, I don't think that your intuition is only through your gut, but a lot of times if you ask someone to say, what's your gut instinct, we do have a reference point. We can understand there's a certain kind of sensation or a certain kind of knowing that we can feel usually in the area around your belly button or your solar plexus, kind of in your belly somewhere. That's your gut reaction or your gut feeling. And so that puts us on the right track. I don't think that your guidance is only your gut, but it's in the right vicinity.
Perfect. I love that. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, the death and the birth cycle that you have mentioned. I know that, a lot of the women might be curious about it. Can you talk a little bit about this cycle, how it looks like, so that, women can get a clear picture?
So great. So I wish I had the visual. I have a really awesome visual of this. But if you could imagine or sort of a midpoint, and as you dip down, if you come up into the rebirth era, it's sort of like the sun rising above the earth, and it's light, and there's a lot of growth, and there's a lot of outward energy. And then as you dip down kind of below the horizon as the sun is setting, then you go into the dark phases, right when the sun is actually not showing, and so you're in the darkness. So the cycle is really, the rebirth cycle is kind of when the sun is up, and the death cycle, so to speak, is when nighttime or winter would happen. So a nice way to talk about the cycle is the menstrual cycle, where during the rebirth part of the menstrual cycle, you're going to be building up the lining of your uterus to create life itself. And then if you don't have a pregnancy, then you're going to begin to shed the lining of the uterus, right? And menstruation, that's when there's there actually hasn't been life created. There's a kind of a death. This happens in the natural world, where in the rebirth cycle it's called spring and into summer, right? And it's like the most foliage and growth and productivity. And then as we start to go fall and head into winter, the leaves fall. We want to hibernate. We want to go inward. And so our productivity cycles, our creative cycles, our focus cycles, and certainly our reproductive cycles really map this. And so it's smart on the part of the natural world to go through winter time and let things lay fallow. I think that a really interesting thing, though, to say about this is that we think that life begins, if you remember my visual still here, in the springtime, when we see the little shoots and the new life. But actually what happens in the dead of winter is that that's when the seeds germinate. They need that cold, they need the shock of the cold, and then the warming of the soil and the sun to start life. And it's a beautiful metaphor that actually in the pit of your dark night of the soul, actually there's the seed of your wisdom, of your authority, of your insi, right, that is germinating. That's where it begins. That's where it doesn't begin when you start to feel awesome, when you launch the program, when you got the accomplishment or this or that. It actually began in that early childhood. So that's a little bit more about the cycle.
It cut off a little bit at the end.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Where?
The last sentence you said.
Well, tell me if you didn't hear this, or we can keep going backwards, but I was just saying that's a few analogies of the cycle. And let me know if you have more questions about it, or
Yeah.
if I didn't explain it well enough.
I think that what would be great as well is, just, what's at the other end of experiencing a breakdown. What do you see on the horizon would be better to say it. If we explain it in terms of, an actual situation a woman might be going through, like in my case, the death of my father. Like if you experience that and you go through that process, what could be, at the horizon after I decided to go through that dark period?
Well, metaphorically, spring always comes. And it's helpful when you feel like it's just going to be winter all the time. Spring always comes. It always comes. It's so personal. I couldn't say for you what you now know about yourself or about your strength or about your wisdom that was only available through going through that. I do know also, just really to speak to your story, and thank you for sharing it, because we're also talking about emotions, that there's this guide, of grief and sadness that helps honor that something you loved is gone, and that deserves to be felt. So it's sort of a guide to have you feel that this is important to feel, and it sort of ushers you through the experience. When you can feel it, it'll take you through through the winter time into your personal springtime.
Yeah, thank you. I think that a good question to ask, and I've noticed, is that a lot of women, when they're experiencing some sort of breakdown, or they feel like they've hit rock bottom, they have a hard time forgiving themselves. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'll say two things. One of my mentors, and a really wonderful man, whose whole life work is helping people shift their beliefs and have enduring happiness, he calls it. Anyways, he says that we have to endure happiness, right? Enduring happiness. Nicole, for some reason, I keep getting sidetracked and forgetting your questions. Tell them to me again. I got to start thinking of my mentor.
It's totally okay. So my question is that I know that a lot of women have trouble forgiving themselves after they've hit rock bottom, or they're experiencing some sort of breakdown. And I know that process sometimes takes quite a while. So if you have anything that could ease that process for them, that would be great.
It's a good question. Good to hear twice. So he said, my mentor, there's no failure, only feedback. Mind. Helps. It helps. I think that not all the women that are listening are in business for themselves or would call themselves entrepreneurs, but I read a really interesting study about the common denominator of entrepreneurs. Of entrepreneurs who saw a vision of something they wanted to see in the world, and then they were able to create it. So that was what defined a successful entrepreneur. And so the study was what allowed them to be successful. Was it that had wealthy backgrounds, or got a certain kind of education, or maybe, right, so there was and the only common denominator was that they had discovered or been taught and had a very particular relationship with failure. and that they did not see it as a personal shortcoming. They didn't see it as the end, per se. It was part of the process. They expected it. It's not like they went for failure. They obviously went for the thing to work out, but they assumed failure would be baked in, and that would be part of the iterative process to keep going, to refine, and to really go, this is what worked, and this is what didn't. This is what I would leave behind, and this is what I would take with me. And I loved that. I thought, what a great way to have a good relationship with failure rather than a debilitating one.
That's a beautiful explanation.
Beautiful one. And I think that one more thing I'd say is it's hard not to want to rush ourselves through a sense of failure or breakdown or rock bottom. But springtime's going to come, and it's good to let it take its time. It's like healing from an injury. If you really take the time, it never comes back. And if you cut corners, you tend to have that weak area in your body for a long time, if not your whole life. So it can be one of those times to just respect the healing process, and let things heal. And maybe when you think you're ready, wait a little bit longer.
I love that, because I feel like whenever we try to avoid a hidden emotion that keeps trying to come up, and we just like, well, I don't have time to look at you anymore. I think that what happens is that it repeats itself in different shapes and forms until we finally look at it.
So true.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about, I hear it all the time from women when they tell me that they feel like they're in a cycle, that they're experiencing a pattern. They keep dating the same type of man. The same situations keep happening for them. What have you noticed is the key to breaking those sort of patterns? And what can a woman start to do to break them?
Sure. The first thing, of course, is the awareness that you have the pattern and that it's something you want to change. To be honest, the best thing that I know of is a kind of work what happens best one-on-one, which is called belief repatterning. But it's an understanding that we form beliefs when we're very, very young about how the world works, how we are, and then we experience things that align with those beliefs. And then our experiences back up our beliefs, so we keep believing them. And so beliefs become experiences, and experiences become beliefs, and that's how a pattern is formed. And so if we can really understand, where did that belief originate? And I don't mean to sound cliche, it's cliche for a reason, but we have to look at our early childhood experiences, usually before we're 3 or 4 or 5. That's around 3 or 4 or 5, our brains go, well, I've learned everything there is to learn, so I'm going to prune neurons, and now this is the way life is. This is the way I am. And so when we can go back and really understand what was going on in those early childhood periods of time where we're forming beliefs, then we can actually shift them. And you have a different experience of yourself, of life, you stop dating that guy and attracted a totally different guy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. I think that this is a really powerful topic for us to have, because I think that out there with this whole law of attraction thing going on, where they tell you feel good all the time. So then you have a lot of women out there like, I don't want to feel my emotions. This feels bad. How can I numb this out? No, I have to focus on feeling good. And I think that it's important to feel your emotions all the way through. So if you could end on that note on talking about why it's important to feel it all the way through, I would love that.
I'm so glad you asked that. So I want to just end by saying, here's what you're going to feel when you feel it all the way through. These are the markers of a death time, a literal or figurative death time, winter time, dark night of the soul, rock bottom. Is going to feel like I can't do this. I can't do it anymore. This is lasting too long. And you can take it a little less seriously, because that's all right. I'm in a death period. I'm in a winter time. This is lasting way too long. Haven't I been here before? I thought I went to therapy for this. I thought I dealt with this. Those are also little markers that you're in a death or winter time. And so you're not going to feel, oh, I am discerning the kernel of my wisdom. You're not, my experience, you don't feel that in those time periods. That comes afterwards. You can have a little voice in your head that says, okay, if I just keep putting one foot in front of the other and try to stay present to what I'm feeling, I know I'm going to look back on this and find a gem. I have no freaking idea what that's going to be. Okay, hope so. But just to know that these are the markers of these really intense, dark times. So you know, that's where you know you are. That's the place on the map. And really, just keep swimming. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and spring comes.
That's beautifully said. Thank you so much. I hope that everybody enjoyed this interview, because I know how important it is to spread out the message for women to feel all of their emotions in any given moment. I know that you have a very special gift for our viewers. Could you share a little bit about it?
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite. It's so much fun creating this. It's a series of little videos. They're about 4 or 5 minutes long, and they just walk you through a simple practice. And the first one is a practice that walks you through how to decode your inner knowing, how to decode your own sensations and emotions, and understand what your intuition and your body is telling you. So that's the first one. And then the rest of them really walk you through what you have to believe to be confident, how to be a happy woman, how to connect with your, what I call your inner oracle. And so if you can watch one or all of them, they're awesome.
Thank you so much. I hope that everybody enjoyed this interview, and we'll be talking very soon. Bye.